This Tuesday, we were traveling with my husband from Chicago by plane. We had several conferences there, and while we were taking the plane, we saw a lot of people that were coming to the airport, and actually in our plane, we have seen also a lot of people together with their children. And we thought, why so many children weren't used in the airport? Do you know the answer why? Yes, because of Thanksgiving. Because many families, they took the road and they decided to visit their families, to go to their fathers and mothers and grandparents, to visit them and to be together, united as a family during Thanksgiving. So I saw one young mother with 4 children. The oldest probably was 7 or 8, and the youngest was about 2 years old. And this mother was not alone. There were many other mothers and fathers together with their children. And I thought, how nice to see the children together with their families, together with their parents, going to visit the family. And I thought that one day all of us will go also to be united with our heavenly family, right? So this Tuesday, I was reminded about one event that we just have read from Scripture. This event took place long time ago, just before Jesus was born. At that time, all the roads were filled with people. Do you know why? Because the governor of the Roman world, or Caesar Augustus, he decided that a census should take place. So he issued a decree so that everyone could go to his native town or village or city and to be registered there. So this was census. Do you know who was this Emperor Augustus? If you don't know, I will tell you a little bit about him. So he was a Roman Empire, and actually he was born long time before that. He was born approximately 63 before Christ, and he was a grandnephew of Caesar Julius. You know Julius Caesar. So he was grandnephew of him. And he was adopted by Julius Caesar. And he wanted to be, to succeed him. And it happened. When Julius Caesar died, he succeeded him. But the problem was that he had some other people, 2 competitors, who also wanted to share the throne. One of them was Antony, and another was Lepidus. So this new emperor, or who wanted to be an emperor, Augustus, he decided to get rid of these 2 competitors, and he succeeded. And probably you know that it was a big battle of Antony, who united with the queen of Egypt, Cleopatra. And it was a big battle between Antony, who was united with Cleopatra, and this Augustus. And Augustus won the battle, and he became a king or a Caesar or a, governor of the whole Roman world. So this was a story. We also can say that his real name was not Augustus. It was actually a title. And his real name was different. He was named Gaius Octavius. And when he became emperor, he decided to call himself not just Octavius, but Octavianus, to feel more important. And what does it mean, Augustus? This title meant that people should call him Your Majesty or Your Holiness. So in Latin language, Augustus means holiness or majestic, Your Majesty, So you can feel that this person wanted to be a real king of the whole world. And he succeeded. So he has this title. Now everybody called him Augustus, Caesar Augustus, Roman emperor. And he thought that he is so important that he rules over the whole world. That's why when you read the first and second verse from this chapter of Gospel of Luke, you see there in some translations, when he issued this decree that a census should be taken of the entire Roman world. In some translations, you can read not only entire Roman world, but of the whole inhabited world, it is written. And literally in the Asian manuscript, it is this meaning. So this emperor thought that he is a ruler over the whole earth. But you know what? Exactly at that time when he issued this decree, another king should be born, right? What was his name? Jesus. And this Jesus should be a real king, not only just over the Roman world, but over the really whole world, and not only just world, but also over the whole universe. So can you see how stupid sometimes we human beings are? When we have some kind of power, we have this tendency, to see about or to think about ourselves as if we are so important, right? That we rule over everything. This was the case with the Emperor Augustus. But you know what is interesting? God was watching over this situation. And this King Augustus, or Emperor, Roman Emperor Augustus, he thought that he issued this decree. But in reality, do you know who inspired him issue this decree? You think Satan, yeah? Do you have another option? What do you think? Who can inspire him to issue this decree? Do you think God himself could do it? When, I studied this passage, I thought, why this decree was issued exactly at the time when Mary should give birth to Jesus? Can you imagine that Joseph and Mary, they lived far away from Bethlehem, where they should go to be registered? Because as we read, Joseph was from town of Bethlehem. So his fathers, grandfathers were from that town. So to be registered, he had to go from Nazareth, Galilee, south to Bethlehem. It's about 90 miles. And usually they just go by walk or sometimes on a donkey. So it's a long journey. And can you imagine that Mary was pregnant on her, what month of pregnancy? Right, it was 9th month of pregnancy. Do you think it was easy for her to travel 90 miles by foot? I don't think so. So why God allowed this Emperor Augustus issued a decree exactly at the time when Mary was to give birth to Jesus? Did the Lord knew that it is not so easy for a pregnant woman to go from Nazareth to Bethlehem, on this 9th month of pregnancy? Why this happened? Do you have any answers? Because in the Old Testament there is a prophecy, right? And the prophecy says that Jesus will be born where? In Bethlehem. So the Lord knew that according to prophecy, he needed to move this couple from Nazareth to Bethlehem. But how to do it? So God knew that there is a way. Everybody should go to be registered. And it can be if an issue or if a decree would be issued that everybody should move to the native town to be registered. So Augustus thought that it was his own idea to issue a decree. But do we see now who rules the world? So God succeeded with his plans. But now let us imagine how Joseph and Mary felt when they heard this news. Of course, there was no radio, no TV at that time. I don't know even how they knew about the decree. Probably some people went to the marketplaces, and they were kind of, people who announced the news. And maybe people who were going to the marketplace back and forth, they heard these people from the government who read this decree and said, all people listen to us. The decree was issued that everybody should go to the native town to be registered. You need to do it this week or next week or quickly as soon as possible. So probably neighbors of Joseph and Mary came to them and said, Mary, did you hear the news? You have to go now. How will you make it? Because it's not easy for you to go to Bethlehem. And I think that Mary probably prayed. And she was discouraged, maybe. I can imagine I would be on her place. And if I would be Mary, I would say to the Lord, Lord, don't you know that I am pregnant? Don't you know that it's not just 3rd month or 5th month, even not 6th or 7th? Do you know that this is 9th month? Could you help us not to go? Could you help this Augustus issue this decree a little bit earlier or a little bit later? Why now, when I have to give birth to baby? I even think that probably Mary was tempted to think like that. She could say, Lord, this is your baby. You gave me this baby. Why you don't care right now about this baby? Probably she was kind of confused. But she did not have any other option. She just had to go on the road together with Joseph to the south, to the city of Bethlehem. Probably you saw a lot of pictures on this travel, right? Maybe Christmas cards, Joseph and Mary together going, Mary on the donkey, right? Very often we see these cards. Probably it was like that. Probably Joseph thought it would be very difficult for my wife. Probably I have to take a donkey and put her on the donkey and go together with her. We don't know how many days they traveled because they had to make stops to rest, because it was also, hillsides and not only valleys or straight roads. So it took several days. I don't know how many. But now they approached Bethlehem. And you know that Bethlehem is translated very interestingly. Do you know the meaning of this city or this town? I know that my husband knows for sure, so I would ask him, how can we translate the name of this town? House of bread, exactly. So if you approach the town with such wonderful name, House of Bread, what would you expect in this town? A lot of bread. You probably expect all houses will be open before you. People are very hospitable. They just kind of invite every stranger and share their bread with the strangers, because the city should be full of bread. This is the name of the city. But what actually Joseph and Mary found there? Did they find any family that opened their doors before them? Did they find? No. Did they find any family or any person who shared their bread with them? No, we don't read about it. Very surprisingly, but the city or town with such a beautiful name actually did not prove the name. So probably during Christmas time you saw a lot of skits and drama and children's program, and children perform so beautifully and sing songs and showed us how this poor couple with pregnant Mary, they tried to find something, some place, to sleep over there. So you can see during the Christmas programs how they knock to every door, how they ask every innkeeper about the place, and what kind of answer they usually receive. No place, no room, no place. For a long time when I heard the story of Jesus' birth, I thought that the main problem for Joseph and Mary at that time was that there was no room in this city for them. But recently, when I studied this passage again, I understood that the main point of the story was not that they did not have any room there. I found out that there were some other points of the story, and probably the main point was different. Let us read text number 6. While they were there, the time came for the baby to be born, and she gave birth to her firstborn, a son. She wrapped him in cloth and placed him in a manger because there was no room for them in the inn. Okay, no room in the inn. But what Mary did to Jesus? Did you notice what she did? She gave a birth to him and wrapped him in cloth. When I read it, it kind of struck me. Where did Mary take the cloth for baby? If there was no room, no provision, for refuge, no family shared with them anything, where did Mary take this clothes for baby? Do you have any answer? When I thought about it, I thought, you see, it was a crisis. The family was in crisis. 9th month of pregnancy, a different town, they came, maybe it was close to the night or during the night, no room in any hotel, no family shared their, roof. But Mary was prepared. I understood that she took a bundle of baby clothes with her because she knew that anything could happen during this travel. She knew that it was 9th month, so she was prepared for this event. When I began to think about it, I thought even more. I understood that women at that time, they had to prepare to the birth of their child long time before the birth, right? Because they did not have supermarkets, they did not have Toys R Us, they did not have any other provision to buy ready baby clothes. They need to produce baby clothes by themselves. So they had to weave, they have to sew, they need to prepare baby blankets and all other fabrics so that baby could be wrapped in, right? So what do you think Mary did during this 9 months when she was waiting for a baby? She was preparing the clothes for baby, right? Because there was no other way. And I think that when Joseph said, Mary, although it's so discouraging that we heard the decree was issued, but we had to go to Bethlehem, be prepared, take everything you need, and let's go. And I think at that moment, Mary went to her room, she prepared a bundle of baby clothes that was already made by her during this long months of expectancy, of baby birth. She took all this that she would need in case if it would happen during the travel. And she went to the donkey, with her bundle. So, when they were in Bethlehem without any room. It was not the main point. The main point is that although without a room, Mary was prepared for the birth. And so, when they found this stable or cave with animals, and when Mary had to give birth to the baby was not naked, in this manger. Why? Because Mary was prepared for this event. Although it was crisis, but inside, in the middle of crisis, she was prepared for the birth of the birth of Jesus. And you know that when you read the following verses, that angels told the shepherds, they also said, you will find a baby wrapped in clothes and lying in a manger. Is it interesting that even angels specified it, that baby was safely wrapped because this couple was prepared? I thought about this story, and I made several lessons for myself. One of the lessons is that every one of us probably has a village or a town or city that we can call our native town or native city or native village. And it is very good to know our roots, right? But we need to remember that our cities and villages and towns are not our real native places of origin. Our native place of origin is where? Heavenly Jerusalem. That's why probably Jesus sometimes relocates us. That's why probably we need sometimes to move to other places. That's why probably we miss sometimes this distant land of our region. But Jesus allows us to experience this because he wants us to remember your real place of origin is where? Heavenly Jerusalem. Second lesson, the same way, like a decree was issued in this Roman world by Augustus, who thought that he was a real, king of the whole earth. The same way, someday in future, also a decree will be issued, and everybody should go and choose direction where to be registered. The only difference will be that there will be just two cities where to be registered. One will be Babylon, and another will be heavenly Jerusalem. We don't know time where the decree will be issued, but we, the same way like Mary, could be prepared for this crisis. So, dear people, I would like to suggest, let us use this time wisely. Let us prepare for the future crisis. I also would like to mention that another lesson that I draw from this story is God's provision. Although sometimes it looks like there was no provision at all for this couple, nevertheless, let's count. The first provision, Joseph, was a provision for Mary. Sometimes when we remember this Christmas story, we just picture animals in this cave or stable and no other people, We made this point, there was no other people around Mary, and we forget Joseph. When Mary had to marry Joseph, I think maybe some other people said, because you know who was Joseph, right? Do you know that Mary was not his first wife? As, researchers say, he was a widowed man. He had some children from his first marriage. His wife died. We don't know the circumstances. And now he had to marry this young girl, Mary. So to have her as a second wife, because the first wife died. And maybe some other people said to Mary, Mary, why do you need this guy? Maybe you need to look at some other guys, younger, without any children. Why do you need this one? I think that Mary was a girl who prayed a lot. And probably through her prayers she received an answer that this is the right choice. But maybe even she did not know why God chose for her Joseph. So I have the answer why. You know that when they were already in the stable or in this cave, and when Mary was desperate because she felt this pain, because she understood that she had to deliver the baby, that she was already almost in labor, and no room and so on, I think that she was nervous a little bit and did not feel secure at all. But Joseph was by her side. And because Joseph had already experience, because he already had several children, he knew how everything should happen. Although there was no doctor, no nurse, no midwife around Mary, Joseph played this role. You see how wise was God when he picked up this man. So I think that Joseph went out. He found some water. He probably set a fire to warm up the place or to heat the water. He helped Mary. He told her what will be next. He probably comforted her. He probably also cut this birth coat of the baby Jesus. He also probably washed blood from this baby Jesus. He helped Mary to wash herself. And he also kept his eye on the fire so that this hay, will not start on fire and everything would not be on fire. So Joseph was in the right place and he was the right person. I think also that because he lost his wife, he had a compassionate heart. And probably because he knew this tragedy and he knew how he felt when he lost his first wife, he did not want to lose Mary during this birth of Jesus. I think that he was kind and tender and compassionate towards her. And God picked the right man because he could use his past experience to help Mary to go through her present experience. I also think that God thought wisely who should be that man who will take his son in his hands. Can you imagine that Joseph was the first person who took Jesus into his hands? And I think God used wisely. He picked up the right man with the soft and secure and kind hands for his heavenly Son. So this was provision of God. No room, but Joseph. And when Mary had Joseph, it does not matter did she have a room or not, because Joseph provided everything. Animals. Sometimes we think, why animals? What a strange environment for heavenly King baby Jesus. But you know who were the witnesses of the first Adam when he was created? Right. They were animals. They were the first witnesses of the creation of the first Adam. And now the second Adam should be born. Who should be the first witnesses? The same way, animals. So God has some humor, I guess. And besides, you know that in Palestine, it is cold sometimes, especially during the night. And these animals, because of their, they breathe. And because of their breath, They warmed up the small cave or small stable. So, baby Jesus was in the right place with the right provision. And can you imagine that if he would be born in a rich palace or a rich apartment, then how the poor people would identify with Jesus? Or the other way around, if he would be born in the poor settlement or apartment, how the rich people would identify with him? So God chose or allowed to happen this, misery, because God knew that there should be a neutral place for Jesus' birth, so that every man from any nation, any race, or any social rank could identify with Jesus. Jesus became King of all through his humble birth. I would like to tell you that this story has many rich points, right, as we can see. But it's not the end. Because baby Jesus was baby then. But who is Jesus right now? Is he a baby? Not anymore. Once I read a story, and maybe children would like it, that during Christmas season, one grandma decided to take her granddaughter to the church, because in the church there was a nice program, and it was a nice nativity scene with the dolls, big dolls, Joseph, Mary, animals, and baby Jesus in manger. So when grandma and this granddaughter, little girl, came to see this nativity scene, the granddaughter said to grandma, "Grandma, this is baby Jesus." And grandma said, "Yes, you're right, this is baby Jesus." And then little girl asked, "Grandma, but do you know why he did not grow? Because last year he was also baby." Although it's funny, but sometimes it's true with our hearts. Sometimes we can say that baby Jesus is still baby. He does not grow in our hearts. And he has to grow, because we need to understand and we need to witness that he not a baby anymore. He is now who? He is King of Kings and Lord of Lords. And he is not a baby Jesus. He is the Savior. And he would like us to become also his soldiers, prepared for the battle that eventually would come. And he is ready to equip us. And so, although we don't know when crisis will come, we need to use wisely this time to be prepared for crisis, like Mary was. And God will provide. Although probably there will be no room for us in this world, but God will provide for us in the time of crisis, if we will be prepared. Let's start our preparation.